Hello, my lovelies, and welcome to the Heartland Hot Dish podcast. This is where we come to the table and rediscover the connection and meaning to our food and culinary treasures of the Great Lakes region. Join us as we discover the traditions and stories woven into the fabric of the Heartland cuisine, from the iconic dishes that define the Midwest to the hidden gems waiting to be discovered. We'll take you on a mouth-watering journey through the diverse culinary landscape of the Great Lakes area. Get ready to indulge your senses and ignite your appetite as we explore the rich tapestry of flavors that make up the Heartland Hot Dish. All right, we're Paczki Paloozering it today, which really is just our Shrove Tuesday celebration, because I'm going to have to bring it back to the Brits at some point.
You use this British word. What is that word?
Shrove?
Shrove. I've never heard of that.
Oh, when you shrive, when you're going to prepare to remove to go into Lent. So you would send kids out to go shroving.
Oh.
And they would go to your house leading up like the week before Lent begins. So the Tuesday before. And they would ask for bacon. They'd ask for sweet treats. That's where some of the shroving and why you have all the sweet things like pancakes, which we will get to pancakes. And we're talking poonch-kee, which I'm going to be pronouncing incorrectly the entirety of the next 45 to 50 minutes. But you go shroving.
Shroving. Lee, have you heard about shroving?
I've heard about Shrove Tide, and that's another word for Fat Tuesday. But
I like that it's another word for Fat Tuesday, and Fat Tuesday is another word for shroving.
and then
Right.
and then another word.
Have
and
an
then-
originators.
and then and that Fat Tuesday is the culmination of Carnival. That starts with the Epiphany.
If only Marcy was here, we could have a full fist fight. I like this game.
So Carnival starts with Epiphany, which is in January, which is the 12th night of Christmas.
And that's our king cake, right?
That's right. That's
king
where
cake.
king cake starts. But they do king cake for Fat Tuesday as well.
Yeah. So we're talking poonch-kees. So really, I think we're either starting with what it is or the history of it. And we were talking off mic a little bit, like what's the difference between the two? But what is a poonch-kee?
Well, we're really talking about the difference between not the difference between poonch-kee and king cake, but the difference between poonch-kee and doughnuts, because donuts are my love language.
And all year round, you can go get them whenever you want.
I know.
And poonch-kees is not the way.
Well, right, and I moved here to the Midwest, and didn't have a poonch-kee heritage or tradition.
When did you get exposed to a poonch-kee?
I think it was probably my first year here, and I saw how they were written, and I'm like, what the heck word is
it's
that?
a mad spelling.
And why is that?
What's the
why do you say poonch-kee?
And the singular and the plural are very different.
Yes,
right?
they are.
They're wildly differently spelled. And I only know the one, which I think is the plural.
Yes.
Poonch-kee is the plural.
Plural.
Like that I've learned. Right.
I mean, do you really need to know the singular?
Well, the funny thing is that there are donut shops here in Ann Arbor
Yes.
that do poonch-kees for Fat Tuesday, but for some of them, they have seemed to me, as the casual donut eater, to be effectively the same thing. But there have been other poonch-kees that I've tried that are clearly different.
Correct. They are meant
Yes.
to be wildly different.
Yes.
And I would describe, the best way to describe it for anyone listening is you can have a donut that might be like 400, maybe 500 calories, a donut.
Okay.
A poonch-kee is about 1,000.
I've had the poonch-kees. They didn't feel like 1,000 calories.
And they're not any bigger. It's just the amount of dairy and things that are in there, which was make that big
Dairy,
change.
butter, eggs. They're they're intended to be sort of enriched sweet indulgences, and all the butter and all the eggs and all the.
Well, you might make a donut on the cheap. This is the donut using every dairy product you could find possibly in your house.
It's like the Cadillac of donuts.
Yeah, it would
Right.
be like if you threw cost out the window and you're like, I don't really care. And you know what? All of my fridge just broke and I need to use up every piece of dairy in my house.
All right.
This is a poonch-kee.
So that would also help justify the increased cost of them because
100%. Yeah,
And
you've
so,
got.
yeah, this is about cleaning out your kitchen, cleaning out your cupboards before you start fasting for Lent.
Yeah. It's really to remove temptation.
And as somebody who fasts for Yom Kippur, I just want to say that fasting for Lent is not really the same.
No.
No,
It's
it's
removing a select group.
Sure.
right? It's like some dairy, some meat, some booze, stays away for a bit. And it's like 40 days.
It's
Yes, 40
you,
days.
but everyone can give up whatever they want to give up, or
You
is,
can
or,
make-
or is that the
I mean, if we're going to go to England and Church of England, because C of E, Church of England, the
Mhm.
laziest of all the Christian religions, you can do what you want, when you want, how long you want, whatever you want.
choose what you're going to
You
give
make
up,
some
right?
life choices in there, where it is.
It's really the Catholics that gets really serious about
Yeah.
And within Catholic dogma, these are the things that you give. You give up.
Yeah.
Wait, a dairy or fatty dairy? What's the?
You also get rid of eggs.
Okay.
So your eggs are going, your dairy's going, so your milk,
Right.
your butter, your creams, all of those
And
things.
this is not just on Fridays. This is every day.
Yeah.
Because
this
it's
is
meat
those
on
40
Fridays.
days.
This is that 40 days. And so
Gotcha.
then you're also getting rid of meat. You also
But
get,
meat's only on Fridays, or meat's every day?
I think meat's every day. I think
Oh.
if you're taking it dead serious, which I don't know many people.
I'm not a Catholic, so
Gotcha.
Yeah, and many people take seriously, and then the booze also goes.
Okay.
So all the good, I mean,
Sure.
it's just all the good stuff of where it goes. Okay, sorry. So
Derailed a little bit for the Jew in the
that's
room.
what
I
we do.
appreciate.
I mean, if we go to a little of the history, I mean, we're definitely talking in a Midwest terminology. But this, as far as a poonch-kee, which I'll get a glare at every time I say it, for the wrong pronunciation, I can't say any of my words correctly. I'm not going to try to say the state where there's a trail. But if we go to it, it's really a Polish thing as far as where this comes from. Is that right, Lee?
yes, it is. It is a Polish thing, and that's where it originates. And the reason why poonch-kees are such a big deal in Michigan is because there was a huge Polish community that came and settled here in Hamtramck around the turn of the 20th century to kind of support the fledgling auto industry. And they really set up shop at Hamtramck. And unfortunately, it's not the Polish enclave now that it once was, but there's still a lot of Polish culture, a lot of Polish festivals that happen there. And they just came in and kind of turned it into a little Poland.
I mean, they do a poonch-kee parade.
Yeah. And
on
they have,
Paczki Day.
and they actually, the main bakery in Hamtramck, the New Palace Bakery, they're the official poonch-kee headquarters, and they have declared Fat Tuesday Paczki Day in Hamtramck.
Okay.
Which is exciting. And people, I've heard stories about people lining up for hours, and that's even after they've pre-ordered. This is the part that confuses me. If you've
Yeah.
pre-ordered, why are you lining up for hours? But
Well, the
Because
New
that
Palace
Pol-
Bakery, they actually open the doors at 3 in the morning on
Holy
Fat
cow.
Tuesday, and the line is like around the block, and it's that way, and they churn out like 30 different kinds of poonch-kee round the clock on that.
It's that you're not done. I mean, I know John that's here used to do poonch-kees for the bakehouse, and like, there's never enough time. I mean, I think a lot of our guests get a little upset that there's a limited number of poonch-kees that the bakehouse makes when we order them for Fat Tuesday, because we'll do Fat Tuesday at the farm. We only get like 100. Like, we don't get very many, and that's it. Like, there isn't really capacity to do more. You could start earlier than 3 a.m., I guess, but that's pushing your luck. And so they're just frying constantly. So that dough's proving, it's frying, it's proving and frying all the way through.
And then they have like 30 different fillings, the bakery in Hamtramck.
Unicorn.
And we, yeah.
I'm dead
And
serious.
we-
There's a unicorn flavor. I want to know what's in it.
Yeah. I mean, I was.
it's not unicorns. I can guarantee you that.
I know when I wrote a blog piece on this for the Bakehouse blog, and when I was researching what the New Palace Bakery does, I called them up and I said, how many poonch-kees do you think you churn out every day? And the person on the phone just said, I have absolutely no idea. It's just thousands.
But there in Hamtramck, they make them every day, not just on Paczki Day, I believe.
Yes,
They,
yes, they do,
they
yeah.
have continued it.
Yes.
It is not necessarily great for your cholesterol.
Sure.
Yeah.
Right. It's still a donut. It's still fried
Yeah.
foods.
100%.
And then the other thing I found, I don't know if you guys listen to it, but in Wisconsin, there's a bakery in Wisconsin that they've actually recorded the poonch-kee polka. And it's a song about poonch-kees. Really? Yep.
Wow. Poonch-kee polka.
Poonch-kee polka. It's the poonch-kee.
Now I feel bad I don't have a button to press to listen to a poonch-kee polka. I feel like every time I've done one of these with Lee, there's meant to be like some music I should have played into the game of what it does. You could, but then I've got to go and edit. See, Lee's trying to indicate quietly while on camera and pointing at me at the same time that she could make it happen. Then I have to check all kinds of copyright rules and things that.
Yeah, that's
Right,
true.
so
It sounds like a pain in the neck. But there
I
are
would Google
right.
Poonch-kee polka and enjoy the song after
That's
this.
a great
Yeah.
idea. Right, so there are clearly classic flavors that get stuffed into the poonch-kee, right? Because the poonch-kee is,
Yes.
right, it's a round fried dough,
Yep.
right,
Mhm.
that gets filled. And classically,
The classic fillings are rose hip jam and plum preserves.
And that's it. Those are the two, and that's
Those are
the
the
most
two traditional ones, but
right. And those are
there-
that's classic Polish.
that's classic Polish. They, there's other fruit preserves that they do, but those are the two real old traditional ones. And actually, the bakehouse does both of those. And then it can be cream, it can be cheese. It can. I mean, we do. The bakehouse does the rose hip and the plum, and then the donuts that we make every Sunday, the sweet
Mhm.
ricotta cream donuts, those are essentially poonch-kees. And
Oh.
and so we have those, and then there's chocolate pudding or chocolate cream and lemon cream.
So there's a long time ago when BC, before children, that I once was cool and I lived in Poland. And so the sweet cream on the ricotta
Mhm.
is really that last batch of cheese that they're making with that batch of milk. So if you think of
mhm.
very young cheese,
Mhm.
like
Yeah.
very, very young cheese, and it was cheese that was made at the dairy yard by the family. And then that cheese is sweetened and then it's used like that. So a very simple ricotta, basically.
Because you
You're
have to
make-
get rid of all of your dairy.
You're getting rid of it, and it's to remove
The
temptation.
rich dairy.
You can,
The rich dairy.
yeah,
Rich
you can
dairy,
have
yeah.
it, but you just can't use it. So then they go into larger, older cheeses, firmer cheeses after that. The one that they do over there that I remember we don't do over here is prune. So they'll do prune or plum, like a very intense prune or plum. I'm guessing it's trying to aid digestion at some point. Because the other ones.
fruit is another one.
Yeah,
of the
because
old
the other ones they
traditional
do
ones,
is
that's
like
right.
the jam. So if you think of it,
Mhm.
Daniel, it's like trying to get rid of all your sweet treats, and so like any of your preserves or what it is. It's kind of sad because I'm guessing that no one's actually using up everything, but maybe anything that's open would be a good description of it in your
makes
in your
sense.
cupboards, right?
Right.
Whatever's downstairs in the root cellar kind of space, you're leaving alone. But if you've got it open, it's in your fridge. You don't want to be looking at it because you're gonna steal some in the middle of the night.
Be tempted, and then
Yeah,
right.
it's removing temptation instantaneously, or what it was. And so those flavors that Lee says completely normal, but then kind of the fun one that I think's out there a lot in poonch-kee land now is bacon.
Oh,
And so bacon made it in there, sweet cream and bacon. So we all like, you got your savory and sweet piece in there. What's fun is that for Lent, you got to get rid of the bacon too. And so it's kind of not the worst thing in the world that somebody slapped those two together. And I kind of like the fun connection of the two. And because so as a Brit who, when you talk Shrove Tuesday or you're talking Pancake Day, because it's not Fat Tuesday, it's not poonch-kee Day, it is Pancake Day for us and a lot of Central Europe, is that we would be cooking all our bacon and using our bacon in the same way.
would you be frying your pancakes in bacon fat?
127%. We actually make. You wouldn't think our pancakes are not your pancakes or our pancakes over here. We're talking more like a crepe.
Okay.
Way more like a crepe. And I hate
Oh,
to say the word
right.
crepe because then, I've got to support the French and their love of pancakes. But it is much more of a thinner pancake. Rather than a overly leavened thing, it's about using up as much. So you could make even more and they'd stretch further because we would take them to like the vicarage. And so then you're burning them through.
Right. It was in Los Angeles once, and there was a place that made these savory pancakes that were stuffed with cheese, but they were not like crepes. I think they had cornmeal, and the way that they did it was right. They put the pancake batter on the flat top, put the slice of
Yeah.
Swiss cheese in, and sort of settles a little bit, and then you flip it, and it's gorgeous.
Yeah, for
Was
us.
it on Fat Tuesday that you
It
saw?
was not on Fat Tuesday, but I feel like it would have been appropriate.
Yeah, so for us, we're using, when you're asking like what's in there, we're using up all the same things. We're using up our eggs, our milk, our cream. We're making crepe batter and banging out thousands of the things. And so like every house in the UK back when I was a kid, at least, you'd make them or we'd go take them to the church or the vicarage. And then there's always you must have heard of the tradition of like the pancake races.
I must.
Come on, it's like
where would I
all
have
right,
heard the
you've
tradition
heard of the wheel
pancake
of
races?
cheese, the chasing the wheel of
Sure,
cheese
yes,
down the hill.
right,
Okay,
yes, right.
Similar folklore in the United Kingdom.
There's pancakes rolling down the hill.
So it's that somebody was making their pancakes and they heard the church bell go and they're going late, and so they ran with their pan with pancakes to the church, and
That's
then it turned
dedication.
into a church pancake race. And
That's
so then you have a pancake in your pan, and you have to run around on a race, and it's a pancake race on Shrove Tuesday.
That's
And I
awesome.
kind
Right.
of like the quirkiness of that. It's so you got poonch-kee parades, but imagine running around with juggling poonch-kees. That would be a British version of the same thing for me.
I feel like running around with a cauldron of hot oil would be a bad idea.
Oh, that's not the place to go. I feel like some dumb Brit would probably have come up with that in their world of what it is. So you talked about like the history of it coming from Poland. It's in Hamtramck. How many different places in Hamtramck are doing it? As far as like, you mentioned like probably the big hitter. Are there other bakeries that you talk about from Hamtramck in any of the blog?
No, I just focused on the New Palace Bakery. Like as I said, Hamtramck is not the Polish enclave it once was. So it's actually now, um, it's declared like there's a large Muslim population there now, and from Pakistan, from Bangladesh. So the Poles are kind of the minority now. So
Sounds like London in the good blend of everyone,
yeah,
which is a beautiful thing.
yeah. So. I just know of the New Palace Bakery, and I mean, and it's a family-run business that's been around since 1908. So it's an institution, and
But they're poonch-kee everywhere,
Yes.
right? In these parts, right? So I would
Yeah.
tend to believe that there are going to be more places.
And I had
Hamtramck.
basically said to all of us because we're recording this on February the 14th, Valentine's Day. This will go out a little later. The reality is when you hear this one, if you have not already ordered your poonch-kees, you're probably out of luck because you have to pre-order. You could pre-order them right now on February the 14th if you were able to listen to this live and it was a live stream for us. But by the time this is out, you're kind of out of luck.
You
will have-
actually there's no poonch-kees for walking.
There are some out there. They're
Right,
not
yes.
walk-in. I don't think walk-in. The bakehouse doesn't do any.
yeah, we do. We
Do
do.
you? You can.
Right.
We're gonna have about a few hundred. for
Great, they're gone.
walk-ins. But the
Unless
door-
you're like the wonderful like Thanksgiving Black Friday kind of
the
experience.
doors open at the bakehouse at 7, and they're usually
We
the walk-in ones are usually gone.
when we've done them
Before
here and
you-
we've had the bakehouses, in order for
Mhm.
me and my family to have poonch-kees, we make them at home.
Oh,
That's really the only way you get them because I'm not going to take some away from a guest. What does it look like? I do like making some fresh cheese, like fresh ricotta cheese myself. Like totally game for that. I actually make fresh creme fraiche in them. Weird, but whatever.
Sure.
Make me some fresh creme fraiche in there, some citrusy.
it's no weirder than unicorn.
It's no weirder than a unicorn flavor, but I think that that's probably the thing that you get out of this is you have to be prepared, and you got to know your bakery, you got to know where they're coming from, and they're as you said, they're pretty much everywhere. There's a lot of places. You're going to be Plum Market's going to be doing them locally. You got Whole Foods going to be doing them like a trade. Like they're going to be everywhere for a hot minute.
I was listening to a report about the famous place in Hamtramck and some of the creative flavors that they had released in the past, right? And I think they were fairly standard, but the idea was there's a peanut butter and jelly and there's a strawberry cheesecake.
Yep.
And the people who were doing this reporting on it tried all of them, which is, I think, a fairly normal thing to want to do, or maybe it's not. It's what I want to do.
You can have a
I want to try
normal
all of the
Didn't
flavors.
you do a donut thing in your past where you went?
Oh yes, yes
See?
I did, and I regretted that the moment I started because trying all the donuts is right, and these were traditional donuts, not the 1,000-calorie fat and sugar bombs of these poonch-kees, but there's this thing where if you wolf down a couple of donuts, you're fine, right? But if you take some time and you slow down
Sure.
and you try a couple bites and you're thinking about how they taste and you're evaluating them, it's amazing how your body is able to catch up and to understand how many calories you're eating and make you feel that and tell you to stop.
So there's weird flavors out there. You can get a pierogi poonch-kee,
Oh,
which is great.
Right.
Because
So what is?
it's exactly what you think it is. It's a pierogi filling inside a poonch-kee.
Okay.
Like it is.
Mm.
You can get buffalo chicken
Poonch-
poonch-kees.
poonch-kees.
There are savory ones out there, and they've become a bit more of a thing, and they're held around. I think of them like the sweetened buns, basically. When you've got sweetened buns with a meat filling in the side of them, but yeah, poonch-kees have gone like outside of their normal thing, which is great. They are a Polish thing that came to Hamtramck. They've spread a little further, and people are having fun with them now to settle into a groove. There's also the weird ones. There's like all your pina coladas, your weird flavors, unicorn. Again, I just want to know what's in unicorn.
I think it's just blue coloring and pink coloring, right? That's typically what unicorn stuff is.
Yeah.
Sometimes with maybe a little iridescent something or edible glitter into the mix.
Sure. You had mentioned PB&J.
Yes.
They do an Elvis one.
Oh,
You get the bacon added in there.
and the
which-
banana.
Get the banana in
Yep.
there, which I just think is fun. Again,
Sure.
have
Totally.
some. Lee's like, no.
Lee's the
I-
traditionalist.
Well, I do like the poonch-kees that we make at the bakehouse very much, but my the the donut I prefer to eat are cake donuts. I like fried cakes.
Really? Oh, that's
There's
like the word. That's like
there's some really good. There's
sure,
some really.
sure.
I'm with you though. I am right.
Yeah.
This is important. This is important side right. My favorite donut is a yeast raised donut, light, airy,
100%.
right? But it needs to be well fried. I want to have a little bit of crisp on the outside just to pay off all that oil that I'm going to be eating, right?
Yep.
But at the same time, um, a great cake donut is magnificent.
It could be great.
So my favorite donut of all time turned out to be a cake donut, which for me, as somebody who prefers yeast-raised donuts, blew my mind.
And I will say the best fried cake donuts on the planet is up in Petoskey at Johann's.
Oh.
They are fantastic.
Been up to Petoskey a lot, never been had it.
Tell me,
This is
right.
Is this Lee's now? Things you must eat? Because we've had the Daniels things we must eat. This can go to the Lee's.
So I would say the Skylar Bakery is old-fashioned in upstate New York, but it's in Watervliet. But tell me about what makes that donut in Petoskey so special.
They double fry it
Okay.
for one thing,
Mhm.
and the crust is crispy, and the dough is like a sour cream, tangy kind of cakey donut, and it's fantastic. And my dad, we used to go up north all the time, and actually my father discovered Johann's. It's in Petoskey, right on the main drag, across the street from the McLaren Hospital that's there now. But and they've been around forever. And you just go in there, and they have, I prefer just straight fried cake donuts, but they come glazed, they come coated in nuts, there's chocolate on them, and but they're just phenomenal.
So interestingly, much like Lee, the Skylar Bakery, the one that would just blew my socks and shoes off, was entirely plain. There's no glaze on it,
Right.
no other coating. It was just gorgeous, gorgeous cake. This one had a little hint of nutmeg in, and
Yep,
just a
this one does too. Yep.
beautiful, beautiful, burnished, super crispy, crunchy outside.
See, the Roadhouse, we made them they still make them, but I made them, and the lovely lady Maria, she's still there, and she was the grandmaster of making the cake donuts at the Roadhouse. And then we did, a donut Sunday, and then we were like donut Monday, donut Tuesday. It was one of Ari's crazy ideas, and you had your different ones of what they were. When they were great, they were great. Some of it for me, as much as the making and keeping it short and flaky so it would fluff beautifully, was about the oil and the freshness of that oil,
Yep.
and the change of it was huge. The ones I've always enjoyed were either in some kind of meat fat.
Mhm.
So if you were frying in tallow, which doesn't make it vegetarian, the Roadhouse does not do this, listeners, but it's really good in meat fat or peanut oil. Both of those things the Roadhouse doesn't do, but that changes that rise for me what it is. Whereas when you look at like the poonch-kee versus the donut, I think one of the big additions, and it's not that donuts don't do it in some of their recipes, is the addition of the booze. And so what the booze does, the sciencey bit of it, and this is where our listeners can correct me.
Because we haven't talked about booze and poonch-kees at all.
We haven't talked
Yeah,
about
no,
like
no.
the booze goes in there for that immediate evaporation. And so basically as that immediate evaporation happens, is what happens when you do booze in batter. So I make fish and chip batter, and we'll put booze in it. It allows that immediate evaporation. It pushes everything out. So it makes everything go outwards rather than coming inwards, and allows that crust to form before it does. It does add flavor, 110%. Like you're not getting the flavor of the booze in there, but that immediate evaporation, that higher boiling point, basically, that of higher evaporation, is allowing some of that rise to happen. But then it's protecting it by pushing out. So if you can think of it, I always think of like when you're hydrating dough, you're making little flour molecules explode and whatever. The booze is kind of like big arms stretching out and pushing out away from you while working its way through the dough to protect it, which I think is maybe not unique to a poonch-kee versus a donut, because there are donut doughs I know that have that in there, but I think that it really was like, this is the right way to go.
But the booze that goes into poonch-kees is very specific and very high test, high potency alcohol. It's spiritus. It's made in Poland. It's a grain alcohol. It packs a wallop. It's 192 proof alcohol, 96%, And as Karen said, yeah, it serves as a blocker so that the dough, once it's in the deep fryer, isn't absorbing oil.
Daniel's like, yes, please.
Well, I was just thinking about it. I was thinking, right, and this is actually a spirit that Polish people will also drink.
Yeah.
No,
No.
not really.
Eh,
No.
Oh,
They
yes, right. We're hearing
well,
mixed
let
things.
me
I've stood in a
not
kitchen.
not
I've
not
stood-
straight up. I mean, they're not
Right.
going to just knock it back.
Chef,
They're gonna-
Polish chefs will.
They're gonna,
I-
oh, okay.
I'm just going to let you know that while maybe you shouldn't, yes, it will make your eye go blind. Usually your left one first.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
feats of strength. In the
Feats of
kitchen.
strength.
Yes.
No, and I think that's the difference. And when you think about like a donut dough, I think of a British donut again. Sorry, I know we're Midwest, we're talking about this, but we're talking about a Polish thing that came to Hamtramck, spread over the Midwest. It is not dissimilar in that we would use milk too
Mhm.
for the donut dough base. It's the sheer volume of egg yolk, not just egg in there, that you've really like risen up the amount of dairy that you've put into this thing.
And that actually causes, I'm assuming that that's kind of what causes the shape of the poonch-kee to be a little bit different from traditional
Right, and
stuffed
it-
donuts because it feels like they're closer to spherical, a little bit more
They're a little
rounded.
flat, right? If you look at a poonch-kee, it's not this. When I think of a donut, especially a British donut, you get almost like a baseball round, right? The yeasted rise, the structure that holds it together.
Sort of we're talking like a filled donut, like a filled
Yeah,
yeast raised donut.
but like-
because here they're more more puck-like.
Come on, they're UFOs. They're really good. We're going to get a whole different listener if I use the word UFO. Some search engine optimization is going to happen in there. But no, they're a lot more flatter. So they get rolled out.
Mhm.
So British
We're
donut
talking
will
about
get kneaded
traditional
into
yeast
a
raised,
roll.
traditional yeast raised.
Yeah,
donut.
no, poonch-kees. So
Oh,
they'll get rolled
poonch-kees.
on a sheet,
Okay.
and then you cut them.
Okay,
I don't know how they do them at the bakehouse, but I know when I made them,
you roll them out on a
it-
sheet.
it's a sheeter that I would use, and then you literally go in with your circular rolling pin cutter, which
Cutter.
is just a lot of circle cutters all at the same time, and cut them. British donuts get kneaded. There's a lot of donuts that do get kneaded. Yes, you can still do it the same way. What I would say about a poonch-kee for me, that higher fat content, to the amount of liquid in there, has a very high. Very high. It has a more high hydration than a regular donut, which makes for less structure in some way, and the filling is excessive.
Oh, I
And
see.
in my belief, that the amount of filling that goes in there, and I like a good filling in a donut, but a poonch-kee has a lot. There's a lot going on in there.
Mm.
The structure isn't some like sourdoughy, holy, beautiful thing. It's risen, it's done its thing, but it's much more, to me, a softer.
It's
donut.
very, yeah, it's very
It's not
plush,
structured up
it's very-
together,
no.
right?
Richer, more tender.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a chewiness to it
Oh, sure.
versus like a dough. Whereas if you've ever been to like a Tesco's or a Sainsbury's in the UK, it's more like a bread roll that's sweetened is a donut for us. It's not quite that bad, but
That's
it's
so
a bit
sad.
more. It's not.
Don't-
we
don't-
got way better sugar. We got Tate and Lyle's sugar that makes everything better.
These
than that.
are very, very plush and fluffy and
Yeah.
tender, and yes, and then the filling obviously gets injected into it after it's been fried.
Well, some of the fillings, my understanding is, at least some of the novel fillings get applied either to the top or in the middle, but not as with having the poonch-kee actually sliced open and then have the filling layered in.
No,
They did that at the place in Hamtramck. That was for some of their novel fillings for the peanut butter and
Okay.
Yeah,
jelly
you
one.
can do the
for
wedge
example.
thing where you cut them and then you've got the wedge, or you've got them piped in. One of the two game
Right.
shows.
Yeah, we use a piping bag and
I understand that that's the
Inject
more
it.
traditional way
Yeah.
to get that in there, right?
Sure.
Yeah, it's cool.
What else you got, Lee, for the poonch-kee world? Because I'm going to drive us into our wonderful pancake land now. Well,
Because a poonch-kee is like a pancake.
a poonch-kee is a pancake.
well, just to clarify, the spiritus that goes into the booze that goes into the poonch-kee is its technical name. It's a rectified spirit, so it's clear as day, and
It's Everclear, guys.
it's ever clear.
Have you ever had Everclear?
I've had Everclear.
Okay.
And
you
it's-
should not drink
and it-
Everclear.
and it's
Ever.
it's distilled umpteen times, so you never it doesn't have a flavor to it. It's grain alcohol, but it's
Makes your eye
but
twitch.
that's been distilled a gajillion times, so that it
It's
and,
the
and
Polish
actually it
Everclear.
reminds me of this is an aside, but and I've never drunk this particular spiritus ever, but I have had very high test, potent, clear as day alcohol. And my mother had some property in Kentucky where she ran and trained dogs, and it was in the middle of this farming valley. And one of one of the family farmers who lived next door would would distill his own booze in his bathtub, and it was called White Lightning.
Yeah.
And
Bathtub gin. I love that
it
stuff.
was called White Lightning, and
Or not.
it was clear as water. It was smooth, but man, did it pack a wallop. And then they would chase it with dill pickle brine.
Sure. The problem with a lot of the Polish stuff when they make it is they don't remove the head. So the first distill,
Right, yes.
they'll leave all the
head cut, the
yeah,
headsy
yeah.
parts, yes.
Yeah, they're like, no, that's for us too. And like, no,
Well, that would explain the eye
that
part.
will literally make you go blind.
Right.
So, and I was just going to say that I did come across somebody who was reporting on Spiritus said that, what did he say? He said something like it's like getting hit in the polar vortex when you drink if you just knock it back.
So back to the poonch-kees and less of the booze. Before we move on to pancakes, I was curious about flavors and favorite flavors amongst the people here in the room.
100%.
Oh,
Easy.
What's your what? You,
It's custard all day long. Real
right.
custard. Like properly made custard. Not the ricotta. None of the ones, bakehouse. None of the ones the bakehouse. I want me fresh cold. I want ice cold custard. I want a fresh poonch-kee.
Mhm.
Dust warm. Toasty warm. I want it dusted with lots of icing sugar and then right from the fridge. Claire Clark, who was the pastry chef of the French Laundry,
Mhm.
she worked at the Wolsey in London, and she has one where you make a very thick custard and you don't put the cream in it. So you make like a milk egg yolk custard.
Mhm.
It's incredibly thick. And then you whip cream separately and you fold them together after it's all gone cold. Delicious. And you pipe that right in. That's the win. And
that
again,
sounds amazing. Where do you get that?
in my house, about 8 o'clock on a
all right.
Thursday.
So you need to invite us over on Fat Tuesday, Kim.
I do.
Yeah, that sounds amazing. Right.
The ricotta ones are the ones I would go for. The
Yes.
ones I like the others, but the ricotta's delicious.
I really don't have that much of a sweet tooth, so I prefer donuts that aren't glazed because that's just too sweet for me. But I know at the bakehouse the sweet ricotta cream filled donut or poonch-kees have powdered sugar. The chocolate cream has dusted cocoa on the top, and then
But that's not sweet dusted cocoa.
no. But then all of the jam ones, the rose hip, the raspberry,
Rose hip's not too sweet.
no,
It's not too
but
bad.
they're glazed. They're dipped in glaze.
Oh,
So
right.
they have like a
So poonch-kees can actually be dipped in glaze too.
Mhm.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's usually not. It's usually powdered sugar. I
Gotcha.
think the glaze is much more an American thing, at least
Yeah.
for my. We're going BC again before children, which I have to actively think about my life before I have my 2 little boys. I don't think it is. I think it's all powdered sugar. And when we say powdered sugar, it's icing sugar back home at what it was.
But I want to have one of your poonch-kees.
I'm going to make you a pierogi poonch-kee.
No, I want the one with the custard.
Yeah, yeah.
I think I just want the custard.
Yeah,
No,
the
the
custard one.
Honestly, go look her up. Claire Clark, phenomenal chef. She was French Laundry pastry chef. Then she went back to the UK and worked in a place called the Wolsey for a while. And all her stuff. She makes Battenberg cake. You ever heard of Battenberg cake?
Have
A little
not.
grid. It's a lemon and rose cake, but it's in it's got a 4 grid and it's got jam between it wrapped in marzipan. There was like a company in the UK, you'd buy them for tea cakes, Battenberg cake, really easy to buy, incredibly difficult to make. You know, like it's one of those like mass produced things. You're like, oh, yeah. And then as a chef, I had to make one once. I'm like, oh my God, how difficult is this thing? I just want to go buy this from the store. Like making it stick together, like marzipan and jam are not friends and hold them together. Sorry, now I'm drifting very far. So you've had a lot of poonch-kees now.
I've had a handful of poonch-kees. I've had a lot of donuts.
Just
I've had
locally?
a handful of poonch-kees
Like
locally.
in the Ann Arbor area?
In the Ann Arbor area. Some
Okay.
from Zingerman's Bakehouse, some from Demo's.
Yeah.
you
I
know,
like Demos. Demos is definitely just giving you a donut with some stuff
Right,
in
that, I
it
think
in a
that was right.
completely okay way.
And I think DJ's as well does the same
yeah.
type of
Yep.
thing. It's a donut.
Okay.
Right.
What flavors?
I also tend towards custard on the inside, but I tried the bakehouse ones. I always wanted more filling in them, right? But but anything that's custard like, so chocolate pudding is great. But lemon has
I've always
beautifully
wanted to
bright.
do our butterscotch pudding inside one. Would be really good. I know,
Mm.
again, nothing to do with like
Sure.
any traditional side of it. I think that's the bit where the poonch-kee has become fun and a place to have some fun and care less about the calories because you're about to go on a diet for the next 40 days, or you're meant to. Whereas most people consuming this are not giving up anything
Right.
for the next 40 days.
And just eating as many as they can, because that nobody goes or maybe somebody does and has
I
just
can't.
one poonch-kee.
That's me. I
Okay,
can't do it
and it's not
anymore.
a one poonch-kee because the singular poonch-kee is punch.
No.
Oh,
No.
see, can't do it.
I know, no. There is a
It's
singular.
a very.
right.
It's spelt different. Like
It is.
like
It's spelled
wildly different.
differently.
Yes.
It's different. It's just. Different.
So for me, I think that abstaining afterwards allows you to have that treat and go kind of wild in the aisles for them for sure. I'm a one donut guy anymore. I mean, I'm a Long John custard filled chocolate glazed. That's my donut. If the kid goes to the store and gets me one, like goes to the bakery in town.
So if you want some statistics, this is in Poland. So statistically, every Pole in Poland eats 2.5 poonch-kees on Fat Tuesday.
That
and
seems
so,
low.
So there's like 100 million.
Let's
in
go
entire
listen to the
country.
Americans because that number is way up. It hasn't traveled. I mean, I don't remember poonch-kees in New York when I was in there, when I was up in Maine. I don't remember them in California. I'm sure they were around. It does feel like a Midwesterner thing, even sticking around here a little bit still.
I do remember seeing them upstate New York, but it was less of a big deal.
Sure.
Right? That I think within the communities that they serve, right, and within the Polish communities, there are people who are getting them.
Yeah.
I remember seeing those clamshell boxes of them shelf stable at the Price Chopper
Oh,
supermarkets.
those are scary.
Right.
Stay away from those.
Sure.
I do think that piece that we come past, like the idea of why people were doing it, the religious reasons of getting rid of it. There's got to be some fun tradition past that as well.
Well, if we go back to the 16th and 17th century in Poland, Augustus III was the one that kind of transformed the donut. He brought all these French pastry chefs in, and they turned what used to be like if they threw an old donut at you, you get a black eye. But then the French, being the French, they created this lovely, enriched, beautiful donut that could just float off the plate, literally.
I don't think of the French as the donut people.
So when they got to Poland, they became the donut.
No,
people.
100%. When I think of it, it's like an Italian thing for me.
Oh yeah.
For
And
that level of donut.
But it was the French that kind of transformed poonch-kees in Poland, because Augustus, and this was back in the 17th century. So, and he's renowned for making that happen. So.
I remember as a kid, discovering the French crullers at Dunkin' Donuts and being
Ooh.
delighted by those. But don't get one now because they've changed and they're awful.
Sure.
Well, you can get French crullers at the bakehouse on Saturdays.
They are
right,
they are
yes.
exceptionally good. I
Yeah,
never
yeah.
get to the
Yes,
bakehouse.
they-
on the
they are.
weekend. They are
right.
exceptionally good.
So
Neither do I. Right.
basically it's pot of choux dough that's fried and then glazed.
Yes,
So-
they are absolutely
Yeah.
stunning.
Mhm.
But they're absolutely stunning the first thing in the morning. They don't hold very well.
No, they do not. They do not.
So we understand that this is some kind of I am about to abstain from some things for the next 40 days.
Yes.
Do you know what the Brits did?
What did the Brits do?
So we have pancakes. That's what we do.
Okay.
We have crepes. Okay, France. We have crepes, and we're all into it. Do you know what happened in 1668?
I have no idea what
So
happened.
Charles II was our king, and he had a belief that he was perfect and lived in this like ethereal, you should behave like this. We're talking 1668. My country is not very well behaved. And so there's still shroving happening. It's still a thing. The kids are running around doing these things.
This is sounding eerily familiar for some reason.
Oh, yeah. We got the 1668 Shrove Tuesday riots in the United Kingdom. So they, not only would we ask you to abstain from some foods, we also asked you to abstain from the brothel house.
Oh.
As the British people, we were not very happy about that option being added to our abstinence. And so there was riots over it. And so it's kind of semi-famous in the UK of the 1668 Charles II, literally the Shrove Tuesday riots of what happened back then.
Wow.
And they, again, were just upset about the continued level of abstinence of different things, being the foods. They wanted a party on the streets, and basically all the way up to Shrove Tuesday, they would be having a party in the streets, rioting, doing all kinds of not pleasant things, the things they should not be doing, knowing that they're going to stop doing them for 40 days. It was like, release all your energy now and then not do it for 40 days, rather than just stay calm the whole way through. But yeah, Charles II, there was Shrove Tuesday riots. It got him put into his palace for like 4 days, and they had to change some rules after it as well.
So the consequence was you have to go back into your palace.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
And stay there.
The streets of London were rioting for about 4 days over it because he was trying to stop all of the. He put out a petition. There's some things in the National History Museum, not National History Museum, sorry, the British Museum. There's one of the petition signs I remember as a kid going to see, and it's him like shutting down brothels for the entirety of the 40 days, and like, no, that's not gonna. That's even as a child, I'm like, wow, that's not gonna happen in the United Kingdom right now.
I had no idea that they were so popular and well regarded.
I just think that it's kind of fun, like that abstinence piece. And so when you get to other nations that are doing similar things on your Fat Tuesday, your Shrove Tuesday, your Pancake Day, your poonch-kee Day, you've got the Swedes are doing a very similar thing. I just mentioned it, I think, at the beginning of the podcast. I might have said it very quickly, but there's sommel, the like cardamom cake that's filled with like pistachio cream inside of it. They're all doing the same thing, trying to get rid of all their sweet creams and milks and dairies products, or what it is. I just think it's kind of fun, like that spread over what it is and what vastly different. Like why pistachios were a big thing in Sweden. And some of it is like the nut industry that's on the northern coast of Germany. That was where like 90% of the world's marzipan comes from there. And so there's a huge nut importer that then gets up into Sweden. I just like, there was somebody who did this podcast about the travel of food, and sometimes we get obsessed that religion controlled us, but it's really more about our regionality and what we can do. So if you think about like the warmer places things were proving, so you go into the Brits, we're a little further up, whereas you come down into Poland around that time, it's a little warmer. You've got the French and the Italians are warm, being able to prove things. We've got flat pancakes, they get donuts. Good to be them, right? Like versus us and our flat little crappy pancakes. And that's before natural leavener. So back in the day, why we had crepes and we're not having the American pancake is there's no chemical leavener back then.
See, I would go pancakes over donuts for
crepes, 100%.
Right, especially if I was doing this at home and not having to fry. Right,
when we had talked about here, so the farm does a Fat Tuesday celebration, so the Mardi Gras version. So we do a lot of fun things. We'll do some etouffee. We do some beautiful sausage rolls that we'll fill in spice, so you get like Cajun spice inside a sausage roll. So I get to play my Brit American.
I was gonna say you probably don't see that many of those.
You don't see that many, but like I like the fun that can be had in there. But the pancakes are much easier. We had talked about doing a big pancake day, right? Like you come in and it's continuous serving crepe pancakes. It's just not really over here. I don't think, as an American, have you ever heard a pancake day like that?
Not like that.
Well, there's pancake breakfasts at churches.
Sure,
Yeah,
but not in the
like
crepe
it is
form.
for
right?
us. It is Shrove Tuesday is Pancake Day, and that's where my mum's crepe cannelloni would come. So after Pancake Day, we would have crepe cannelloni.
Right.
So
Chris have a really soft spot on my heart. They're one of the first things I learned how to cook.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
I'm doing that with my kids. I think I talked about the book.
Except for me, it was as an adult.
Okay. Okay, well, there you go. I've been trying to fill in this cookbook. I think outside of the Heartland Hot Dish podcast, it's the one I kind of want to do for the family, is like some kind of video recording of us testing and coming up with the recipes that are in there that have those traditions. What I was trying to get to, I love that I wrapped around, is that the traditions of religion are really wrapped up a lot more in our regionality of where we are and what's happening around us. And I think
culture,
that's a lot more.
right? Yes.
The culture piece
Totally.
is almost more important than the food side of it.
Mhm.
I just wonder, and I didn't find anything. I really looked, the precursor to Lent. Like I get the religious side, but there is probably some pagan backstory before that. That
As
probably
there
comes-
typically is to
as there
everything.
typically has, or they've played off of some pagan religion to try and like make the pagan religions accept Christianity or the Catholicism at that time.
Or
Well, the history of hot cross buns goes all the way back. I mean,
Oh, yeah.
I did a whole bunch of research on.
We
hot
can go
cross
we can go into that world.
or
right now.
even market factors or other sort of cultural things about something about getting rid of your stuff before spring.
It's
right?
it's an interesting fact of like it's still not the best time of the year to burn through a bunch of stuff, right? Like that's the only thing that kind of makes my brain hurt about it, because at this time of the year in March. Maybe in Europe it wasn't quite so bad a bit, but you're still like edging on the side of things haven't quite come up yet. But maybe it is clearing out the cupboards to embrace the new season. But like that seems a little early in the game.
It does feel a little bit early.
But, I mean, that's probably us and global warming and the way that the world has changed now and why it is.
Now, the one thing we didn't talk about is that in Poland, when they eat poonch-kees. Now they eat poonch-kees on the Thursday
Yeah.
before Lent. So
Thursdays is a
that
much bigger day.
Thursday.
Yep.
But not in England. I mean, and there's lots of other places in Europe that do that as well. But you guys don't do.
No, we do Tuesdays.
You just do Tuesday.
Yeah.
So, I'm not sure why that Polish tradition didn't translate over here, but because it's definitely Fat Tuesday over here. But so in Poland, on Fat Thursday is Poonch-kee's Day, and there's all kinds of
Does that give us an excuse to do it again on Thursday?
On Tuesday? If you started on it's the Thursday before. The Thursday before is Poonch-kee Day.
Yeah.
Right, so we could do Thursday. Right, we got Poonch-kee week. It's Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday.
There's going to be
Tuesday.
bakers
That's
just
right.
crying in their eyes. Because
Thursday.
while I'm sure a profitable thing, especially in Hamtramck or some of the big, the independent bakeries, the other places doing it, it's a labor of love. I don't know how much money you're really making in that world of how many of those suckers you're making. Like.
And then over in Poland, there's proverbs and idioms associated with poonch-kee. One is living like a donut in butter, meaning to live in clover, living a luxurious and comfortable life. Another one is those who don't eat a stack of poonch-kees on Fat Thursday
Okay.
will have an empty barn and their field destroyed by mice. And then so obviously the last one meaning that eating poonch-kee brings happiness and good luck, and refusing to eat them is considered not only rude but also unlucky. You don't eat poonch-kees.
And it's not just eating them; it's eating a stack of them.
Yes, tons.
Right.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. I love this idea of opulence. Right. Of that you've got to.
I've got old and overweight. I'm now past the level of opulence of where I need to be.
But the demand of opulence, right? That this is a thing, right? And it's,
Sure.
right. In my culture on Friday nights, right, we're supposed to pretend like a queen is coming over for dinner.
We just talked. Yeah, we were just talking about that at a huddle yesterday. We were talking about that.
Well, there you go.
Yeah.
Right. So you break out the good stuff, and you have the good wine, and you have the good butter, and the really soft bread.
A good reason to have a celebration is a good reason to have a celebration.
Exactly.
And you guys eat your version of poonch-kee for Hanukkah.
Well,
Wow. You just slapped two things
Yeah.
together like they were glue.
Right. I've never had a
Daniel's left eye.
It's called.
His eyebrows are very high right now.
I've never
It's
had.
almost
I've
like
never
he's getting
ha-
hair again.
I've never.
You've never had.
That man has a fringe all of
never
a
had a
sudden.
soufgagnotte that's nearly as good as a poonch-kee.
Okay.
Right. I'm happy to say that.
I think there's some truth in that statement.
Well,
There's nothing
when
wrong
the
with it.
bakehouse bakes the soufgagnotte, how do you say it, Jay?
Soufgagnotte.
Soufgagnotte. Sometimes we do it for Hanukkah. It's basically our poonch-kee dough recipe, and we usually fill them with raspberry jam.
Right. What I have for Hanukkah is it's my excuse to have any fried food. So I'm
Right.
as much oil as possible, but also regular conventional donuts, olive oil coffee cake, put olive oil on toast. Right.
So I did look
I do that every day though.
while we were talking about Daniel's eyebrows. That's going to stay with me. That's my new one for the day. I did look up a little bit about the Christian pagan religion piece.
Oh.
I did ask the wonderful order of ChatGPT to help me. So these facts are definitely not true.
Certainly not checked.
Certainly not. 110% were checked in the last minute and a half while I Googled it through them. But it does sound like it was a little bit about the opportunity of giving up what you have left
Mhm.
to embrace that there will be a new harvest and a new season. So
Right.
you're abstaining in the sense of, yes, I'm going to go through a fasting station, get rid of my old in order to encourage the new. And what was interesting was the Babylonians had the weeping of Tammuz, Tammuz.
Mhm.
You're going to say that differently than me, Daniel. My pronunciations are always terrible, which is about the death and rebirth. It's very mirroring the rebirth of Jesus and
Mhm.
death and resurrection, which is the Babylonian pre-story of Jesus, basically. And so I think that's interesting. There is some, like, taking a chance. It sounds so risky. Taking a chance of getting rid of all your leftover pieces, because cheese is one of the ones you get rid of, and I just think like that's a staple I want to like. And bacon,
right.
keeping that in my smoke box and being
Totally.
happy in my world where it is.
Right. It's having faith in the new harvest.
I think that's what this. It definitely is determined that I would definitely be one of those like, no, I'm sticking with all my stuff in the back.
And then you would have a barn full of mice.
It would have a barn full of mice.
And you actually have a barn, so you
There's your
you
true
do
Well,
not
that's
want a
interesting
barn
that
to
you
the
say
world.
that because that last proverb I read does have sort of the agricultural harvest theme to it. So
I think that's just. I think the joint of coming back to like why you're taking the chance. Keep the mice out of the barn seems like a nice way to. We're having poonch-kees to keep the mice out of the barn.
justify having a stack of poonch-kee, right?
I-
That's right.
It's a disturbing number though that people will eat on poonch-kee days. Like we've had people who will pick up 4 or 5 a person from us, and I'm like, that's a lot of poonch-kee.
Right. I feel
While
like,
having dinner too.
right, because if you want to try all of the flavors,
Did I-
especially at
I
places
did
that
mention
have
how
novel.
many calories a poonch-kee is versus a
You did.
donut.
I don't think I believe you though.
Okay, all right, it's way up there.
I mean, I usually at the bakehouse I usually get one of each, but then I
You
eat them
really?
over a few days. I don't eat them all. in
Oh,
one
well, what do
day.
you do? No, a poonch-kee.
I can't. I just,
Poonch-kee's like it's a today thing only.
no,
Like,
I know. but-
Tomorrow's poonch-kee is not that good.
No, it's true.
And I'm not like the bakehouse specific. I mean any.
Well, maybe
poonch-kee.
what I should just do is just take a bite of each one, but get one, but then just take a bite of each.
I feel like you need to gather some friends together to do this properly, so that
Yeah,
you
and
can
cut
get,
them and
right,
cut them up and split them.
cut them up in quarters.
Yep.
Right.
Exactly.
Sure. The one thing I did say at the beginning was if you are at this podcast and you have not pre-ordered yourself your poonch-kees, you're out of luck in the world. So one thing I will do is I will put the poonch-kee recipe I use. I'll put Claire Clark's
Oh, that's great.
custard recipe in. It's one of the best custard recipes. You don't in that custard recipe. I guess it doesn't really matter. I was going to say, oh, there's a gluten-free version that I also make. But it really doesn't matter because it's going inside the poonch-kee. But it is something to get ready for because it does use a lot of ingredients.
And what do you fry them in?
So I will find beef fat at home.
Oh, wow.
I'm all, if there's any way to
Do beef
use
fat, then beef fat. Yeah.
110%. Like any fat.
Now,
it's
it's,
beef
well, her recipe, I'm assuming, includes the dough recipe as well.
No, not at all. Hers
Oh,
is,
well, you can get the dough recipe in the bakehouse.
yeah, you
first
said it's
cookbook.
in the first cookbook. My poonch-kee recipe is from back in the day in Poland. Like,
Yeah.
Okay.
it's fine. It's in grams already, so it makes my life easier what it is. But I think it uses up, like, be prepared, folks, because you're not making a couple of poonch-kees. I think it was like 8 eggs, the recipe I have. I don't know how big the bakehouse one is, the number of eggs, but the way eggs prices are right now, it's like,
Well, it feels like it's consistent with what this is meant to be. It's
Yeah.
meant to be this luxurious thing.
what's nice is you use up like 6 egg yolks and 2 whole eggs, but then you get to make meringues.
Oh.
And the other thing you can do if you want to stretch your custard more is whisk and make an Italian meringue and fold that into your custard too. And then you're like winning.
Oh.
That's like winning twice. Any last burners on our poonch-kee world or what it is? Get in early, order early. As soon as you hear this, maybe I should get this out as early as possible, this podcast.
Get a lot of them, gather some friends.
Yeah, and I
so
think
you can try as many
and
flavors
maybe
as
it is
possible.
to try a few different bakeries and their poonch-kees as well.
Right.
That would be some fun. I haven't gone out and spread further that often.
Well, it's kind of tough. It's a Tuesday. I mean, most people have things to do.
I'm definitely working because we're selling a lot of Fat Tuesday things. I've got to make a lot of sausage rolls. See, my world is consumed with sausage rolls on Fat Tuesday.
Also sounds delicious.
We did make beignets once for Fat Tuesday for Mardi Gras. And then I started giving them away at the counter, and then we stopped making beignets because I was making so many. All right, my folks, you have a wonderful, wonderful day. Thank you so, so much, my lovelies, for tuning in and listening to today's episode of the Heartland Hot Dish podcast. Hit that like button, subscribe, and leave us a review. Your feedback helps us grow and reach more listeners just like you. Until next time, keep savoring the flavors of the Heartland and sharing the love for this vibrant community. Take care and stay connected.